Following show may shock, disturb, and offend some viewers. The opinions, theories, and facts shared on this podcast are not widely accepted by the brainwashed masses, especially those who find dark humor offensive. Viewer discretion is advised.
Jeffrey Dahmer soaked in blood. The Unabomber blowing up. Waco, Texas, and Heaven's Gates. Aliens modified, meant for apes. JFK shot in the head by the CIA. Bigfoot and the Mothman. Son of Sam talking to dogs again. Witches, ghosts, and goblins. Mysterious noise and hauntings. Dark arts and the skull and bones. Most celebrities are probably cloned. So if you're feeling all alone, crack a beer and get stoned. I welcome you to the podcast Strange Brew. We're here to entertain you. We're here to entertain you.
It's about to get strange.
It's very clear that they want to exterminate the European race. Richard Coudenhove-Kalergi, who is the father of the European Union and who was funded by the bankers Rothschild and Warburg. Now, this man wrote a book called Praktischer Idealismus in 1925, in which he stated that they are a master race and that the Jews only assume the throne of rule over the world by weakening the European race, and that the means to weakening the European race would be to dissolve all the European nations, destroy all their cultural heritage and their national traditions, and replace that with the European Union, and then to invite in Africans, Middle Easterners, and Asians to dilute the blood of Europeans through miscegenation to the point where they became a degenerate mixed race. And then at that point, these people would no longer have any sense of nationhood, and the ancient messianic prophecies of world rule out of Jerusalem. And this was completely in line with what Nikolai had written in 1917 and has manifested itself recently with the invasion of immigrants from Africa, from the Middle East, and from Asia into Europe, America, and Australia. And they are deliberately setting about to genocide the white race and destroy all sense of nationhood and of national heritage and national culture in each of our nations.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. Welcome back. I'm your host, Tomcat, aka Tom Thompson, the Raptilian. You can find my music on all music platforms. I'm joined by, a friend of mine, a guest that's actually never been on the show. I've been on your show a couple times, especially for some fun live streams and stuff like that, and some controversial stuff in the past. But this will be exciting, and I've always wanted to have you on the show, and I thought this topic might be appropriate. So tell everybody who you are and where to find you.
Hell yeah, dude. Constantly controversial. Always. Whether I try to be or not. Whatever. My name is Nathan. I'm from the Reality Czars podcast. I have a co-host named Thomas, aka the Paranoid Motherfucking American. We have an interesting podcast where we talk to anybody and everybody about topics that we find interesting. It can be about like crazy occult, like grimoire, weird shit. It can be about like Bigfoot pussy. It can be about bizarre, funny, and stupid things. We just have a good time, dude. So, I mean, we dig into, like I said, the occult fun stuff. So you can find us at Reality Czars on any, I guess, big platform or whatever the fuck you want to find us, Spotify, any of that. It's been a couple months since we've uploaded. I have a new job doing stuff with the fam, but we are getting ready for the new year, and we're already starting to get some interesting interviews lined up. So look out for us. We are back on YouTube. We had been kicked off for a while. We've been kicked off a lot of things, but we are supposedly back on YouTube. I haven't put a single thing on YouTube yet. But
it's your original channel or whatever. It's the same channel from... Yeah, they've reinstated a bunch of people. We've always danced that line, like I said before we recorded. And I do feel like YouTube does shadow ban people. They don't want to push people out into the algorithm, especially shows like ours that are questioning stuff, right? They suppress a lot of them. But it's surprising to see the type of shows that they've allowed on, right? even like I'm some people have different opinions. I don't mind Jake Shields. I'm surprised that they let his show up there and stuff like that. And he's someone that's
find
trying.
it interesting the content that they allow on the major platforms, and then like I can say FAGGOT or something like that on Twitter or on X, whatever you want to call it, and you won't see me for 2 weeks because I'll be in timeout, and then you'll see somebody else say F and N J word FAG, and they'll get like the algorithm will pop and they'll get like 100,000 retweets or something.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Feds. Yeah, I don't know exactly. There's some reason why some content gets pushed and others get suppressed. I don't know, dude. I'm not calling everybody a Fed, but I do find it interesting.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's why it's like, I enjoy listening to some of the only things I'll like, I can't keep up with podcasts, but like if I can, I don't mind. There's some guests that Jake Shields has that I think are just interesting. But it's at the same time,
awesome dudes, especially guys like in our circle, like some of my friends and stuff he's had on, and like, so, I mean, more power to him. Jake Shields is a cool guy. Yeah, I'm not saying Jake Shields is a Fed. I'm just saying I do find it interesting sometimes the people that they like really promote that are saying wild ass shit, and then
and is it because they want division
lightly
and stuff?
Tame, and they're like, you're fucking fucking.
And my thing is it because like, and me and Jules talked about this, on we did an episode about the race war, and is it done on purpose to cause more and more division? Now, before we get into this stuff, I want to say that this is a comedy podcast. Everything that we're going to say is speculation and theory, and I don't believe in pushing hate towards other people, and I don't hate anybody. I've made this quite clear on the show. I know we have fans that are Black, Asian. Surprisingly, and I've said this before, Asian people really get, not all of them, but there's a lot of like Chinese, Japanese people that see what's going on to the Western world and see what's happening to white people. And they're like, some of them are quite vocal about it, but even through my political content that I put out, there's a lot of Asian people that seem to get it. Japanese, Chinese. There's one guy that absolutely loves my content. There's another dude, like they seem to get it.
No one is more racist than Asian people.
Yeah, that's true. And they like love, a lot of them love white people. And I've always said there is a mutual respect when it comes to like most times, right? There even if you go to Japan, you're a white guy, you're still being looked at weird. Even when I had, and I can't think of his name. That's going to bother me. But anyways, but like, I will think of it in a second. But like if you go there, they will respect you as long as you respect them, but they're also not going to see you as one of their own, right? Like that's not something that's going to, but they have a mutual respect. But there's some crazy stuff going on in the world, and I want to really cover this in a good format. And before we get started, because I have an intro and stuff to this, like when did you start maybe figuring out or realizing, I don't know, we'll say the Kalergi plan might be a warning. It might have been a blueprint, so to speak. There's different theories on how people have read this, specifically one of the books. But what did when you started clue in, because it wasn't only until a couple years ago that I was like, I liked everybody. I had friends that were Black, Asian, Native. Like I had friends of all walks of life, but then it became this thing of like, where I'm not allowed to be white. And even my cousin that lives in one of the most multiculturalist cities in the world, Toronto, he was the minority in his high school, and he had friends of all walks of life, color, and creed. And he started getting annoyed and upset about it, because he's like, I didn't care until everyone tried to force their culture onto me from outside of Canada, right? Like a lot of people, the white people don't have culture. We have literally culture surrounding everybody else, and they don't even know that they're inside of it. And even he's like, I grew up in this diverse city and one of the most diverse in the world. And he's like, I care. Like I liked everybody. People were cool with me. I was like that token white guy a lot of times in like his circle of friends. But then it was pretty much till he said like, you're not allowed to be white. You should, you should be guilty for things that didn't even happen or have been over exaggerated, right?
So, I mean, if you guys are looking at the video version of this, you can tell that I'm not a white guy. I'm a beaner. I think you can say beaner on YouTube. Anyway, I'm Mexican, so I can say it. It's my word. I'm allowed to. So fuck you. So I grew up in a very, very poor household, like basically homeless, food stamps, welfare. And I was kind of forced in, like culturally, we were conservative. My mom was like a right-wing Zionist Christian, but like, But also like culturally, because we were poor, we were like crammed into like the Democrat liberal kind of weird kind of thing. And so I was kind of like, I was told early on, it was like, you're brown, you have to be a Democrat, you have to be a liberal. And so I just kind of was like, okay. And so I kind of rolled with it. I kind of got radical in my youth, and I was like a radical leftist. And I thought I was like a commie, and I was like, yeah, what's up, comrade? You know, this sort of thing. And I realized somewhere early adulthood when I'm talking to people, because there's like, okay, how do I say this politely? The fattest, ugliest, most like tattooed with all the piercings, freaky weirdos that I was hanging out with, I was like, I don't care, whatever, like chicks with chest hair and stuff, you know, you're like, what the fuck's going on? Anyways, whatever. So, that like, they started wanting me to like, well, like state my pronouns, and then also be like, hey, you need to apologize, or like, you kind of have to be like, hey, as a straight male, this is my blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Like, and I started getting kind of pissy about it, but simultaneously I wasn't there yet, because I remember talking to this girl, and she was saying like, well, I'm kind of proud to be white. And like, there was a trigger in me. I was like, you can't say that, bitch.
Yes, yeah.
And it got me pissed. And I was like, why? Why does that make me mad? If some black guy said that, it wouldn't be a problem. If I said, like, I would say La Raza, brown pride, you know, something stupid, it wouldn't, no one would fucking care. But this one stupid girl that I was going to school with said that, and I was like, I should punch her in the face.
And it's weird that these reactions that they give of like even these isms that are like, you know, I saw someone talking about how it's like a magic trick, which it is a lot of like, you know, spelling, grimoires, grammar, spelling, and how like they use these isms like racism, you know, homophobic, you know, sexism, all these isms like specific that they use. And like I always stay on the show, like these things were just created. Like the guy that created the word racism was considered a racist by today's standard. He said you can like kill the Indian in the man, but don't kill the man in the Indian, or something like that. Like, so I'm like, and like a lot of people point to Leon Trotsky creating the word racist, and it was used to browbeat dissonance of the communist agenda. But I was also like that. Like I was a punk kid, more of a libertarian. And I know that you kind of were too, also, of like, you know, live and let be. And then and even during the Black Lives Matter thing, I said, even to Jules, I was like, I fell for it to some extent. I didn't like that with the way cops were treating certain people, and I didn't like the police to begin with. I think they're like a boot of the state, more or less. I still don't. Yeah. Right. So like, but I fell for it. It wouldn't even. Maybe people like my wife were more aware of like, yeah, I'm not going to feel bad for being white or my skin color. And then you start to wake up to it. Specifically, it just seemed like COVID happened, and then they turned on the switch for mass immigration. Now it was been happening in Canada and America and Europe since the 1960s. Like that's when all of them enacted the same sort of immigration act, 60s and 70s, to allow outsider people, essentially, because it used to be in Canada, you had to be white European. Mostly, like they would vet people. It was strict immigration, but you had to be able to assimilate to the culture. So that's when they're like, Canada or America has always been multiculturalist, they meant like different European cultures existed within these places, and obviously some of the Native Americans that I think have been given a lot. German, Norwegian, maybe a Polak. You know, they're like Irish. Are they white? You know, they're kind of like. But it never used to be this thing either of skin color, though, right? It was more nationalistic, when it would be like, it wasn't even like there would be, you know, maybe British people that would look down on Irish people. And then eventually we realized, oh, like we're kind of connected when it comes to like the way we think, and that's what a lot of people forget. And the more I looked into it, is like the one of the least things or whatever we have in common is skin color. It's like, it's actually genetics. That like an Asian person's brain is wired very differently from a white person's brain, and they've done studies on this, and people like to deny these genetic traits, right? And yeah, I mean, we'll get into it, but like the whole identity of even people considering themselves white is pretty new. I mean, they would consider themselves white, but like the same, like an Irish person, an Italian person, and a British person thinking they're all the same thing.
pretty fucking new thinking.
Yes, 100%. And because my co-host Aaron is in Ireland, he's a like actual Irish person, right? It's just
We
like,
all know Italians aren't white,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll die on that hill.
yeah, and even he's like, when I joked when we first started the show, I'm like, like your people or whatever. And I was talking about the UK because like the Northern Ireland is part of it. And he was like, don't fucking say that shit. They enslaved me and my family and my lineage for like, generations. And yeah, so let's just get into it. Behind every major shift in the world, history lies a guiding hand, often unseen, shaping the direction of nations. Wars are fought, borders are redrawn, and populations are displaced. Yet rarely do ordinary people ask if there is a bigger or deeper design. For those who have looked closely at history and the Europe's decline in the last century, one name emerges: Richard Kalergi, whatever the fuck his name is.
Von Coudenhove-Kalergi.
Coudenhove-Kalergi. He was an Austrian-Japanese aristocrat, philosopher, and political visionary whose ideas would lay down the foundation of what many believe is the most radical and destructive agenda in European history. His 1925 book, Praktischer Realism, long ignored the mainstream academia and spelled out a different future where nations' identities would disappear, Europe would be ruled over by a supranational elite, and its native people would be blended into a new racial type. Believers in the conspiracy argue that it simply was not a utopian dream. It was a master plan that they called the Kalergi Plan, and you still see fingerprints of it everywhere in the creation of the European Union, in the rise of mass immigration, in the propaganda of multiculturalism, and in the systematic shaming of European heritage. Natural and sustainable immigration happens organically. Economic immigrants, whether legal or not, can't be blamed for the demonizing or for demonizing for the look of a better demonized for looking for a better quality of life. Genuine asylum seekers and people that want to escape war zones and civil wars created by an aggressor, including Western nations like NATO. Obviously, we all know who controls them. And this is the whole point of we're not trying to blame the people. Now, the people that come in here and they don't want to adapt and they don't want to assimilate and they want to change it into the same place that they left, I have a problem with that. But the people that they displace people within wars, and then these people come to our countries that know a lot of times Muslim countries want to take in. They're not taking in any other people, and then they displace our population when they come in here, right? And it's not everyone's fault. Like there's a lot of people from India being flooded into Canada. And the thing is, it's not all of I have some friends that are Indian and they're fine. They're good people and they want to adapt, but there's many of them that come in here, and then there's cities like Brampton in Ontario where it's like pretty much like a third world country. The architecture looks like European, but like it's a third world country because it's nothing but brown people. And they've done this to other cities in Surrey and Alberta and stuff like that, where it's like they're just importing their people. And my big problem is, and they're like, they laugh at us and they think it's hilarious, and they are perpetrating this, saying that they're invading and they're doing it on purpose. And it's like, so you're not like, it's not like, oh, the government's doing this and we can't blame these people. If they're coming in here and they're saying, fuck you, white people, we're taking over, and there's nothing you can do about it because your government is, psychopaths and looking for opportunities. It's, it is the people at the end of the day, right? If they're trying to change things.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And I honestly, it's weird going through all of this because, like, white people being genocided, which I'll just say that maybe I shouldn't on YouTube. White people, I don't know what you want to say, but it's just kind of like it's an after effect. Mm-hmm. Like these groups, if you read and look into these people, like Richard von Coudenhove-Kalergi, mm-hmm. if you look into his father was God dang it, I had it up here. What the hell is his dad's name? It's something very Germanish. Yeah. This guy was an actual count. He was an Austro-Hungarian diplomat. He's old European aristocracy. He was the ambassador to Japan. This guy, if you look into how Richard von Kalergi was raised, dude, he went to the most elite schools you can imagine. He was like, his father was a bizarre dude. He'd make him take cold showers and sleep on straw mattresses to like harden him. And like it taught him how to fight and how to fence, like at an early age, and how to duel and how to shoot. Like
that's cool. I actually kind of like that.
Yeah, dude. But I mean, that is part of this like elite grooming, I guess you could say, this elite. They believe very strong into like cosmopolitanism, or elite by elite running the government. That this is what this is all about. This mindset. This is all just like, and like his early influences were like Plato and Nietzsche, Kant, and like Christian mysticism. Like these psychos. And I don't even just throw these into the camp. Like the video that you played before, I thought was very interesting. And I think there might be something to that, but I don't think it's all the Jays, whatever. Like, I think that I think the Jays play a part. I think they're a middleman in this like hierarchy, in this bureaucracy of this elite rule, that these psychos think that they are in charge, and that we just have to do what they say. And the way that they can control us, like I've been studying like this hierarchy and this elite theory of rule, and they have to, like, if you look at it, if you're looking at like game theory, how to control us, they can't allow nationalism. So it's like
because that's against the New World Order. They need everyone to blend into one thing.
But they don't want a national solidarity. So, like, if you look at these people, one of the biggest things they wanted to do was the European integration after World War I and World War II. Supposedly, like, their stated goals were to end all European wars.
Yeah, that was the idea, right? And it is interesting because it's like, and like I've said this numerous times on the show, a lot of the Jewish people get brought into these things, and they're like cannon fodder for these like Zionist psycho elites. And it's not just like there's like the black nobility, there is like other hierarchies, but obviously there's the Rothschilds, like, and a lot of them don't even like, there is a fair amount of people that do not believe even in what they're saying. They're atheists, but then they say it's their holy land and stuff like that, right? And a lot of them get brought into it and conditioning, right? A lot of the, like, it's like, well, we've been persecuted for so long, and then it justifies maybe genocide and stuff like that, right? And everyone is being used, right? Like the idea, like, Indians, again, there's billions of them, so they're some of them come from very poor places that are uneducated, and there can be easily used as essentially cannon fodder, because if you flood a country with a bunch of foreign people that have foreign ideologies and religions and languages, it will dilute the existing people that exist in that nation, right? And even like what he wrote about was supposedly, because we don't know, like it could have been more of a warning. I've seen both sides of this idea of like they're declaring that like nationalism was over and the continent must be got into a new nobility, a ruling class made up of financial and intellectuals and spiritual elites. Ordinary Europeans, he predicted, would eventually disappear into homogenized type he described as a Eurasian Negroid race, a fusion of Asians, Africans, and Europeans, stripped of distinct cultural identities. While many dismiss the philosophical speculation, the fact remains that his writings mapped directly onto policies later emerged under the banner of the European integration and multiculturalism. And it is weird because I see, and he said it singles out the Jews as a special elite designed to lead Europe. He wrote that their history of persecution and exile had made them uniquely suited to serve as intellectual aristocrats for the future. But obviously, this could be just a conspiracy. As we said, everything is speculation and theory.
Sure, dude. And like, I have these conversations, and I look at things like, something like Zionism, right? So, like, if you look at something like Zionism, or if you want to even get like bigger picture than this is more like them playing both sides of every single coin. These elites, right there. I guess we can say the J, or I'll just keep saying J, whatever. So the Zionists were not opposed to, but sort of to the international J. So the international J was more the communist, and the Zionist J was more of the nationalist. And so you were kind of forced between these two worlds. That like World War II was kind of, World War I was kind of like them trying to kill out the monarchies, and then World War II was them trying to kill out any form of nationalism and identity, which is kind of fascinating and interesting. And so what arose out of that were two visions for the world. You were either going to be an internationalist or you were going to be a capitalist. more of this weird so you either had the communism or the capitalism. And I look at both ideologies, and both were named, coined, and designed by the Jays.
100%. Communism and stuff, like, it is true. Like, and a lot of that, it brought detrimental harm. That's what I hate. People are like, in Canada you can't question this stuff or whatever. But like what happened during World War II and stuff, they failed to mention the mass slaughtering in the Holodomor and like the Bolshevik Revolution, and this never taught in history about, like, especially, even in Canada. I work sometimes with temp students and stuff like that, and I ask them what they're being taught, and they're not being taught about Canadian history. They're being taught about Native American, Indigenous, even though they're not Indigenous to Canada and stuff like that. They come from Southeast Asia, and I always point, there's European carving tools that predate their arrival. So it's like, not this. You can't just be like, this was ours forever. Even this is the problem, where they want to focus on this like victim versus villain shit, right? And
there's a fantastic comment down here. Yeah, there you go, from Stax. Shout out my homeboy Stax Farmstead. He says, when I started keeping animals on the farm, I really started started using, I guess, or seeing the tactics being used to control us. It's very similar tactics for controlling humans and animal behavior. So like, when you look into this cosmopolitanism and you look into their actual beliefs, they do see us as cattle. And I'm not talking about the Jays right now. I'm talking about these Anglo-American psychopaths. And yes, and if you want to go that route, they also see us as that. And it's funny, dude, because you can look at like the Anglo-American elites, and you could always think that they used to be us or something. But like, if you look at what, like, the lineage that they claim, it goes all the way back to Babylon and bizarre shit. They
would like trace them back to Samaria and stuff like that, and that's the problem. So if this guy, if there was a warning, but this Pan-European Union founded in 1923, and it was funded by powerful banker dynasties, most notably Max Warburg, obviously and the Rothschild family. Like, if that's true, and he were sponsored by these people, it is quite clear that, these families were shaping the financial markets to topple governments, and had obviously enormous sway over global events, right? So if this idea of being borderless always comes back to like the New World Orders, and this is what, I did a mushroom trip recently, and I had this creepy, weird feeling that there was like, there's, I always believe this, one of my favorite theories and stuff was the reptilians, and maybe some of these bloodlines go back to these ancient beings that really they're just here to consume our energy and use us as a slave tool or whatever. But I had this feeling that there was this parasitic force consuming our energy, and it was after me and Jules did our episode on his show, and we were talking about this type of stuff. Then I was like, of course it could be my subconscious, but I had this feeling of like, there's this parasitic force. I feel like I could feel it, and it's consuming our energy, and that's why they want more people together, push everyone to 15-minute cities, overcrowd the system, and then there's just more misery to consume, because that's what's happening. You have people from really poor countries, don't really know what's going on. They come into our country, they want to set up shop and take advantage of the system that we built and created, and then it causes division. Like, this idea, like, diversity isn't a strength, it's a weakness, because it does cause division. You can't bring a bunch of different people with different thoughts and ways of life, or, obviously some cultures that maybe marry their cousins or his kids and stuff like that, and they think that's totally okay, and then they come here and we're like, no, you can't do that, and it's only causing chaos, and the order of chaos is kind of what they want, right?
Yeah, dude, it's always order out of chaos. It's always it's their order out of the chaos that they create, and that's And it is that it's that whole Hegelian dialectic where they create the problem and then they hand you the solution.
Yeah, and even people are like, like, it's so funny how we look at things and they're like, oh yeah, Churchill was a great guy, and all, even though he wasn't. Like, his wife was Jewish, she was Jay's, part of that family, and
he was also a raging alcoholic and a psychopath, a violent shit.
Oh yeah, he played with little boats in his bathtub, and just like was drunk all the time. And it's weird, the people that they prop up as heroes.
Before 10 a.m. I heard, or else it was just
I know. It's so funny. They don't always talk about like Adolf and stuff and him like using like meth and drugs. And it's like they failed to mention that every other people were like, oh my God, the Nazis were on meth. Probably true. Most likely they have evidence of this. But not to American soldiers, Canadians, they were using heroin, coke, all sorts of different drugs. So it's so funny they pick out that one thing, even though it was used throughout all warfare. While we're getting to this, let me play another clip. I can't remember which one is which. So let's just play this one.
Back in Europe, and by extension, America, Canada, and Australia, the indigenous people, cultures, and nations have now lost their right to exist in their own homelands and are now facing extinction. In fact, today it is basically a crime for an area to be too white. No school, no town, no nation is allowed to be white anymore. Yet there are no one pushing for Israel, the Middle East, Africa, or Asia to become multicultural, right? The indigenous people of Europe are treated like second-class citizens in their own countries. The governments are actively working to lift up so-called minorities and push whites down. As an example of the utter hypocrisy, Israel, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain have refused to take in refugees. So, have you seen any media footage about this? Have you seen anyone calling them racist? While white European women of childbearing age today are a small minority of 2% of the entire world's population, they are encouraged to breed outside of their own race, to throw away thousands of years of ethnic heritage and culture. The result will be that those pure genetics that have been refined in Europe for thousands of years will be gone forever.
And it is so crazy because like they don't call anyone else racist for like if China wants to keep China for the Chinese, it's only like white nations. And I always say like they brainwash everyone to be like the world is overpopulated, stop having kids, or there's too many people in the Western world, even though there's so much land that I think they don't even tell us about. And there's enough resources. Like you can't tell me someone like Elon Musk, billions of dollars, the whole world could be fed with the wealth from like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Like they can fix these problems within a month or two, I'm sure, if you actually put the effort into it. Instead of consolidate all the power and wealth towards the top of all these people as everyone else suffers. And it's this whole idea is like, there's a good video that we've shown before of the gumball effect of like, if you take people from here, I've said this to my buddy that is from India. And I was like, this idea of like, you guys come here, you get educated here, and then you stay here. And I was like, but you're not taking your knowledge and your education back to India to try to fix the problems that, they could say were created by the British Empire. But I always say that without the British Empire, there was no trains, there was no market, you wouldn't be living in the modern world. Like I'm in the point of view that yes, there's bad aspects of colonialism, but I think it actually brought more positives than negatives to the world. And there's a ton of proof of this. I have a whole list of like all the things that white colonialism essentially created and implemented into the modern world. And of course, bad things did happen, but this whole effect of like, you get educated here, then you stay here, even though we have a first world declining into a second and third world. But then it's like the idea of you're supposed to go back home, try to fix the pollution and the crazy crime and all the stuff that goes on in places like India and like fix it, not to stay here.
Yeah, I mean, there is that whole theory of like the giant brain drain, right? That we are taking like the top fucking highest IQ folks from like Nigeria, India, all those places. We're making the third world worse. I guess, yeah, that's probably true. I don't want them here anyways, and maybe they should stay there. But I mean, I don't know, dude.
They have entire continents. That's a subcontinent. You have an entire subcontinent. Even like say Africa. I know the North Africa is more like Muslim and stuff like that, but like you have this massive land and you're not doing anything with it. And then when white people came and did something with it in South Africa where there was no tribes that existed there, then you want to kill them and take their shit because you couldn't build something equatable. And I'm like, until you show me that you can, show me proof, right? Like they did that whites only community, which is supposed to be thriving. And they tried to do the same thing with black people in Georgia. And then the people that were running it took all the money and ran away. So they do like Black Lives Matter, same thing. They took all the money from their people, and the natives do this too. In Canada, all the chiefs
they
steal
took a lot
the
of money from woke white women as well.
Yes, yeah, and then but like it's the same thing where like if you see the state of the reserves in Canada, right, the quality of life has stayed the same, but yet we funneled billions and billions of dollars benefits, and they always complain about colonialism, but I'm always like, where would you be? The horses didn't even exist over in this side of the world until Spaniards brought them, right? So this idea that like we need to decolonize, and I'm like, what, back to the Stone Age so you can live in prehistoric times? Because that's what was happening. Bad things did happen to the natives and stuff like that, but like at the end of the day, now we're living in this world where we have to stay sorry for everything that we didn't even do. It was implemented by the government, and now I don't get handed, like I know people are specifically native that have been handed like 30 grand, all this money just for being native, right? So it's like everything is just taken from the white man to bring him down to the level of everybody else. At least that's what it looks like.
Okay, so what I will say is, so it's very real that they had to start in Europe. So let's look at this from like an alien looking down on Earth and them trying to control this place. Okay,
Yeah.
so they had to start with Europe because Europe had the strong. Okay, who invented the wheel? Who invented the modern architecture? Who invented modern technology? Who discovered electricity and learned how to harness it? Who invented the air conditioner? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's a white guy. Pretty sure it's a white guy.
Yeah,
I don't know
cars,
exactly who
planes.
made air conditioning, but thank you, because in the summer I start to melt.
It's true.
But all I'm saying is, so it had to start in Europe. So I'm saying that like it's not necessarily white genocide is just kind of is something that has to happen. It's a necessary, like they're just like, whatever, fuck you, because they had to get rid of the most powerful and the strongest people. And so you're looking at this now and you're like, they're trying to kill all the white people. Well, it just happened you were the big one. So they had to get you under control so that they could take the rest of the fucking world.
And that's what's happening
and like
too.
You were saying, though, before, you were saying something where like, hey, it's only racist if white people don't take people in. Do you know that Japan is now being forced to flood their streets with and I was going to say sand shitters, but what's a nice word for
brown people.
They're flooding it in, and so like it's not just exclusively for white people. It's the strongest people.
Yeah, and who I was thinking of before, and I just popped my head was like when I had Ryan Gable married, like I don't know if they got married, but he went to Japan to like he met a Japanese woman, you know, and like and they went and he even said they'll never think of me of their own, even though if I try to like blend in as much as I can and do. And I was like, and this is this whole thing of they've sold everybody, and it absolutely drives me insane. If this idea of like you know, they do this into Americans, Canadians, is like you're not Canadian, the natives were first or whatever here first, and I'm like, yeah, but they didn't create a nation. There was no such thing as a Canadian. This idea that we need to take everyone into our home that our ancestors built and created because of things that happened in the past.
Well, can we say that to the Indians or the Pakis in England? We'd be like, you're not actually English. We were here first. Can you can't. And then
they'll be like, well, it's revenge to them, right?
Yeah,
it's revenge to them. They openly say that they're getting revenge.
Oh, dude, I tried my hardest to find this video. I think it was from a New York Times contributor. He made a video, like a TikTok that blew up, where he basically said, like, white people, you're right. We are here to replace you.
Yes,
we are taking your women. Yeah, I could not. Google was not allowing me to find this video. They're like,
they openly stated.
Stop looking.
We'll show another clip now, but there's one later on I'll show. I have like a couple more, but let's play this one. I don't know what this one is.
What is happening today is the replacement of the white race, which the UN even admits to and calls replacement migration. This is, in fact, according to the UN's definition, a genocide, white genocide. Massive non-white immigration to all European white countries is textbook genocide. Genocide is simply the intentional attempt to get rid of an ethnic group or destroy its foundations of life, which is exactly what is happening to white Europeans in the world, as millions of hostile third world migrants are flooding their countries, changing their demographics rapidly. At the very same time, our establishment is promoting abortion, divorce, feminism, hookup culture, miscegenation, and homosexuality to lower the birth rates of the white Europeans.
And it's quite clear, dude.
It is quite clear. And so, I mean, again, if I took a bunch of notes on this. So, like, the whole idea with the mass migration, this is like, I've been studying the elite theory, and most of this really has to do with like you now have economic, like, mobile populations. You have weak local identity. You have no national solidarity, so there's no one that can stand up to you. There is predictable consumerism and consumerism behavior. It creates dependence on the bureaucratic systems.
Yes.
It's stability through dependency.
Interesting you say that too, because there was someone that made a really good point about like how the Western world, white people and stuff like that, and others like the Africans that have been here for generations that that did assimilate and become, even though through slavery and stuff, which they enslaved their own people, that's a fact, and they're still doing to this day. So you can't, until you want to fix everything, you need to realize, and the word slave comes from Slavic, when white Europeans were enslaved by the Ottoman Empire anyway. But this whole idea of like we got used to consumerism, and now people are starting to step away from it. So they're like also flooded with a bunch of people that are going to be a lot of like the third worlders. Oh, they can buy stuff now they couldn't in their own countries, so they get also hooked into this. It's a lot of addiction and stuff like that, and then a lot of the points too is like that they're actually being brainwashed to hate white people. It's not like they inherently do, but a lot of these people, they're being brainwashed to be like, look at us as an enemy, you're the white devil, all this stuff, because they see these oligarchs and bankers that maybe identify as white but may not be white, or they don't even see us as part of them, and then they brainwash these people. And then they like the horrible things that go on in South Africa and stuff like that. But then they do this thing where like in post-war years, the European nations began to import foreign labor. First on a small scale, by the 20th and 21st century, they opened the floodgates. Millions arrived from North Africa, the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia, transforming demographics of European cities in a single generation. While mainstream narratives blame economic need, decolonization, or humanitarian duty, the Kalergi theory insists this was orchestrated, deliberate attempt to dissolve European identity. Every refugee crisis, every NGO funded migrant people coming across the Mediterranean, every EU direction promoting diversity is in a piece in a puzzle. This systematic replacement of native Europeans with populations that are easy to manage, less rooted in tradition and more dependent on centralized authority, as you were just saying. The Kalergi himself predicted exactly this transformation, a Europe where the ethnic Europeans were no longer a distinct peoples, but they instead merged into a new docile mass. Seen through the lens of immigration is not a mistake of policy, but a weapon of war, a silent invasion executed by not armies, but by governments and NGOs acting on behalf of these elites. And the citizen immigration, which allows non-Europeans to build demographic bases within European nations, which eventually leads to the minority status. And this push for racial replacement immigration, multiculturalism, is this idea that, we're replacing the indigenous populations with other races who have a higher birth rate and who are still flooding into our nations. The goal of citizen immigration, as David Cameron himself said, is to build a multiracial nation, purposely create a multiracial society for a specific purpose. When the peoples discuss immigration, there are hidden sets of assumptions which are never discussed. And that is so true, because like, there's some people that want a better life and to work hard. But there's a lot of people like we don't even realize, especially in Canada, because how open it is and all that stuff, that there's some very violent, ideologically subversive people coming into our nations that. You know what I mean? They're like, I don't think they realize there's happening in Canada, like wars, like Sikhs are going and shooting Hindus. There's like these ethnic tensions that they're bringing from their countries, Muslims versus Jewish people, like all this stuff that is happening. And it's, again, order out of chaos. I'm like, you can't just force everyone to live together.
It's classic not gonna work. Divide and conquer strategy, dude. And it's exactly, what the British perfected in India by getting them all to fight with each other. System. Yeah, and the caste system. Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting them all. And like it existed still using it to this day. They weaponized the fuck out of it. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, you guys are the good ones. We're going to kind of put you in charge and give you a little extra. And then that causes friction and all kinds of crazy shit. Like the British really perfected it. And they started it actually in the United States. So like, I like to talk about this story because they were bringing in black slaves, but they were also bringing in the Irish because you guys are white.
Yeah.
So they were bringing you stinky Irish, you potato blacks. They were bringing you guys in as indentured servitude, right? Servants.
Yeah, slavery.
So really, it was slavery. It was white slavery, and it's fine. I mean, but you guys had like an out. Like you had to work for like. It was kind of shitty. They would work the fuck out of you, and then like they would be like also make you pay your own rent and food and all that, like and charge you extra. It was shitty, but at the end of it, you got a little plot of land, and they'd give you a gun. So you could
they did this to Italians and shit too in Canada, because a lot of Italians built Toronto and shit, and they're like, here, have this pit, and so
So, but here's the fascinating thing, though, because the Irish did have an out, but it wasn't easy. Like, and so the British would bring the Irish over here, and they would treat them like dogs, dude. And it actually caused like class solidarity between the blacks and the Irish, and the blacks and the Irish started seeing each other like, hey, we have a common enemy. These British guys are cunts. We hate these guys. And they were like, yeah, we're a little whiter, and they allow us to have guns. Like we could actually do something about this. And the British started freaking out actually, because they're like, we're this much, like we're the elite class over here, but now we're flooded with black slaves, and now we're flooded with these Irish. What the hell are we going to do? And that's actually what stopped. Because people always say like, wow, the Irish, they just come over here and die. Those gingers would just rot in the sun. They couldn't pick the cotton or whatever. You know what I mean? That's what stopped this indentured servitude. It wasn't actually. It was because the British got fucking scared. And that's really why the Irish started being considered white. And that's where the original middle class came from in this country, was the Irish. They were like, all right, we have to do something about this. We have to they're not us, but we're going to separate it. And so they broke the solidarity between them, and they started allowing them to have like property and guns and to be almost considered white. And it's one of these things that they've learned. So, I mean, if I look at something like this here, this economic incentives align with the population replacement. So corporations are going to benefit from the cheaper labor. Government benefits from higher tax bases. The aging populations, which they told to quit having babies, and it creates demographic pressure. So you alleviate it by bringing in all these people. Kind of, that's what they say. So this aligns with the elite's incentives. It can be morally framed as humanitarian. So you can bring in all these people. And then a population fragmented by identity. This conflict makes them easier to govern. Shared identity enables collective resistance. Fragmented societies are more dependent on centralized authority. Yep. Multicultural tensions, like you're just talking about between like the Sikhs and the Arab, whatever. Multicultural tensions increase reliance on state arbitration. And this won't be, it's not framed as racial hatred, but as power dynamics. So why elites might prefer some of this. So they say that economic mobile populations, reduce national solidarity, dependence on the bureaucratic systems, weak local identity, predictable consumption behavior, stability through dependency. These are all my stupid notes that I had here. So let's see.
No, it's correct, right? And even like, it's just, I was gonna say, it's funny, like a lot of people, like, even because I have British blood in me, and the elitist caste kind of class system didn't favor the poor people in Britain either, right? Like they like saw them as cannon fodder a lot of times too. And you can see this even in video footage of them like creating stuff. There were slums within like the UK and Britain and stuff like that were like horrific. And then they had these elitist people up top that were walking around like they're the shit, you know?
Yeah, no, dude, Britain has always had a class system that, like, America has no idea. Like, America, we have class problems, whatever, and a billionaire class, and like there are cunts in this world. But, dude, England is that on crack.
Yeah, it's
England
crazy.
and it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have the bloodline, you are not one of them.
Yeah, and that's why even this idea of why this immigration debate favors that support those that support endless immigration into the West is because the term immigration itself is falsely implies fairness. It does so by implying like there's only one immigration system and all countries have the same immigration system, and that immigration systems is fair because it's the outcome of immigration in the same across all countries. Both of these are hidden assumptions as false. In reality, there are two different systems of immigration, and they have two different outcomes. The ugly truth is that all white Western countries have been forced to accept one system of immigration, while the non-white and non-Western countries are free to choose another. So not only is this idea different than the other one, the universal system of immigration is false, but the outcomes of this system could not be more divergent and extreme. We have been silenced by wolves justifying biased, one-sided policies as fairness, yet there is nothing fair about the outcome that they have in mind. The demographic decline is the obviously object of what they're trying to achieve. These days, the demographic decline is common justification for endless immigration into the West. It would not therefore be surprising if pro-immigration advocates were to argue that the West needs citizen immigrations to prevent the demographic decline of the native white populations. On the surface, this appears plausible, yet the demographic decline argues have serious credibility problem. If a citizen immigration is necessary to prevent economic and demographic decline, then why hasn't this object ever been stated openly and publicly? In other words, if the government of white countries truly believe that ethnic and racial makeup of all white country needs to be sacrificed in order to prevent economic or demographic decline, then why hasn't a decision ever been openly stated? And it is true, like this idea of it's the Western government's big business, the media, politicians, and elites have done everything possible to silence any debate on immigration. So far, they have been very successful in hiding the truth that there are two very different systems compared to the West and the Western. But it is true, like this, well, we need to replace you because you're not having enough kids. But my argument is always like,
but we told you not to have kids. We told you
Yes.
in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that it was selfish of you to have more children. They were going for zero growth population. Like my mom was telling me all about this stuff. They thought you weren't supposed to have kids.
Yeah, and
that was jammed down their fucking throat.
In one hand, they said, the world's overpopulated, don't have kids. If you're going to have kids, have 1 to 2. Well, they let the third world breed out of control on purpose, most likely, to use these people as cannon fodder and as weapons without the knowledge of the people in those countries.
Well, dude,
and they never put that much money.
Okay, for a long ass time, countries in Africa and all those other places, they couldn't support giant populations. And so they wouldn't. And it was actually artificially done because of NGOs and because of mass of money, our fucking money being thrown at them that allowed them to grow to the size that they're at.
Africa's population has grown 900% since like 1901. That is insane. So the NGOs and these people and these lobbyist groups did this on purpose, throwing our money at poor countries to develop them. But then they kind of stay in the stagnated state where a lot of the corporations
them. And you did put that in quotes because they want them just I don't know what I did, but I just made balloons go up. Anyways, but they did want them developed enough where they could exploit them because this is another fascinating thing. And we can talk about these are more of the British elites and has no connection to Jay's as far as I know, but maybe he does. If you've ever heard of, the country Rhodesia is named after him, but Cecil Rhodes. We can talk about Cecil Rhodes. I find this fucking fascinating. So he comes from a British elite family. They had a lot of money. They had money in mining in Africa, but I think it was like rubber or something stupid. I don't remember what they initially had their money in, but it was something like that. So they went there and he was like overseeing the family business over there. Slaves, whatever he had over there. So then his brother is like, dude, there's like, I heard about these things called diamonds down in South Africa. And they're like, no shit. All right. Well, he took a huge risk and he fucking went all the way down there and he started a diamond mine. But he was like, I have this mine and now I don't have any labor. How am I going to control these people? They don't want my money because at the time, dude, they were probably pretty small populations, but they were, in a way, they were self-sufficient. They were happy because we hadn't fucked with them yet.
Yeah,
Like, if we had never kicked the beehive, we wouldn't have any of these problems. The kicking of the beehive is done on purpose to create this mass migration. And people are celebrating Venezuela right now. I don't think this is going to be great. I don't think this is going to be good for anybody. Anyways, whatever. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But because this is more the Kalergi plan happening, and it's already happened to Europe, so now they're trying to make it happen to America and Canada, like really trying to accelerate it. You know what I mean? Anyways,
and even in places like South Korea and stuff, they're pushing it, and like in Asian countries now, and
yeah, 100%, dude, 100%. So, like, back to this, because you can look at this happen. This is how, like, they started this shit. So Cecil Rhodes went down there, and these people were pretty self-sufficient. They owned their own property, they owned their own land, and they grew their own food. They grew corn, they grew like mas or whatever the fuck. They grew their own food. They had a wife, they had a family, and they didn't care. They didn't need any fucking frills. They didn't need any, like, do you need a dildo with the American Eagle on it? We can have one shipped to you overnight right now with Amazon. You know, you can, like, all the weird degeneracy and disgusting things that you can do now. They didn't need any of that. They were just happy living their lives. Mm-hmm. So he's like, fuck, like, they don't even want my money. I'm trying to give them these, like, paper, and I'm trying to tell them it's worth something, and they're telling me to go fuck myself. How am I going to get them to work in my goddamn mind instead of working on their own home and taking care of their family? How do I exploit these people? And so this is when the whole taxing system came and got involved, so he could start taxing them for just, like, property taxes or taxes on selling things and taxes on this, that, and the other. So all of a sudden now they're forced to use these paper. Now you have to use this paper, or else we're going to come and take away your home because you're not paying your property taxes.
And that's what's crazy. Yeah, that's kind of slave system. And, like,
it's a slave system.
Yeah, and part of me is like, you know, they didn't like, the people are like, well, white people stole from these nations, and some of that might be true when it comes to the elites, but it didn't benefit white people as a whole. And, like, this idea of, like, you wouldn't have the market that you do to facilitate the money being made off of these mines without white people, and then their own leaders of these other nations and Arabic nations in Africa selling out to these elitists that most likely came from higher backgrounds, maybe connected to the, you know, Jews and stuff like that. Is some of it, the higher elites, not just normal everyday people. And that's why I always think when they're like, you know, they say that the British stole like trillions of dollars from India, which comes from one economist. It's literally a lie. And there's bad things that did happen, but without some of these people that implemented this, there would be no trade to begin with. And that's why I'm like, building is not stealing to begin with. But I will say, like somebody mentioned, Bill Gates need more test subjects. And what he did to the people in India is fucked up, right? Like, just being like, take this medical experiment.
What he did to the girls in Guatemala, what he
crazy.
did to the men in Mexico and made them all sterile. What
absolutely
he did in Africa, murdering a bunch of girls. What he did in India. What he continues to do. He's a giant piece of shit.
We don't have any, like, accountability, and that's the biggest problem. People are like, we need to vote our way out of this, and it's like, if you don't have accountability, these people are going to keep doing this. So I just want to mention this with the citizen immigration tool to combat demographic decline. But then why don't these rich non-white countries like China, Taiwan, Israel, and Arabic nations force their people to adopt it? The final nail in the coffin of the demographic decline, and the argument of it, however, is the open hostile attitude towards the Western leaders to measure which might boost white birth rates and halt decline. That's what I always say, is like, if the amount of money that they put into immigration and bringing immigrants into our nation, in Canada they pay subsidy wages, they give them a lot of times like tax cuts and benefits from our money that we pay into while our people are suffering. If they would take that money that they send, you know, to some African country to give them gender equality rice or whatever the absurd things that they put our money towards, sending it to Ukraine to prop up this war that is probably from one of the most corrupt countries in the world and involved in like crazy child trafficking, all this money that gets siphoned off the taxpayers into these other countries in the pockets of the elites that it ends up coming back to. If they would put that money into actually promoting countries in the Western world to have kids, and give them benefits that they hand everybody else, we wouldn't have a population problem. Someone in history once did this, and I heard Hungary was going to try to do it, which is like, hey, you have one kid, you get a loan for a house. You have one kid, your loan is cut in quarter. If you have two kids, it's cut in half. If you have 4 kids, your loan is paid off. And as long as you have a garden in your house and you're able to be self-sufficient, then that house is yours. And then the population booms and starts to grow. They don't want to put any money into that because they don't want more white people. It definitely seems that way. But yeah, they'll let everybody else breed out of control.
So there are still just a couple little moles that pop up now and then, the ones that they haven't hit with a stick yet. That they're like little countries and little leaders that somehow they get above their station and start thinking about their own people. Right. And so because they're not supposed to in this European Union, you're one of us. You're one of the Eurasian Negroids. You're supposed to do what we say. And Poland is like, fuck you. But here's the thing, dude. So it is funny to me because I look at something like poor dumb people that say things like we need to vote our way out of this. Democracy, the whole idea of democracy. Yeah, there you go. Hungary, 4 kids, they get a free van and tax-free for life. Yes, there are incentives like that. I think there's something like that in Russia too. If you have a certain amount of kids, they like cut your taxes, and it's interesting. Yeah, there are some places that are trying to encourage this shit. It's great, but I think about the whole idea of democracy, dude, was a way to, especially the way that it was instilled in the Western world, because they didn't want anything that was anything akin to like direct democracy. And I kind of understand why. Like, you look at yourself and you're like, okay, like, well, I'm some goofball wearing this stupid t-shirt. Do you really want me to have equal say over how you live your life? Like, I do have a problem.
Yeah, not everybody should vote. There's some
the whole idea that like a juggalo has the same right to tell me how to live my life. Like, go live your life, Juggalo, and drink some fucking Faygo and have a blast and like sniff bath salts if you want or something. I don't know, but don't fucking tell me how to live my goddamn life.
That's what's happening. But lots of immigrants doing that too. They come in, they have the ability to vote on things that like will forever change our country into what they left, and it's like you shouldn't have a right. You should have to live here at least for 10 to 15 years before you have a right to vote.
I agreed. I would even go further, but that's my own bullshit. But what I will say is something like democracy, right? The way that they do it, representative democracy and all that. It was a way of alleviating actual justified anger for things. So to me, like, you would look at something like the monarchy, you would look at like the king. If he did something that was unpopular with the populace, right? They might put his fucking head on a pike.
Yeah, especially back in the day. Yeah, and that's like
back in the day, they'd be like, "All right, heads are gonna roll." Okay, so then what they did is they're like, "All right, well, what if we separate this into 2 things?" Especially in America. I mean, you guys are like the parliamentary system is crazy, dude. There's like 30 different parties and all kinds of shit. But in America, they perfected it. You basically have your left and your right, and you have to jam everybody into the 2. And then, so like, if these guys are doing something really unpopular, well, then I'm so fucking mad at those Democrats. And you're like, well, and then you just go, well, I'm voting even harder this time. Then you get a Republican, and then he does something really stupid, like Donald Trump is doing a lot of dumb crap. And then you get so mad at the Republicans, and then the Democrat gets in office, and it's a great way of alleviating that pressure valve.
Yeah, I agree. And then it's like the same people are pulling the puppet strings
at the top, and right? They just they give you Coke and Pepsi. They give you your flavors of tyranny. And at the top, it's the same asshole.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So when Hungary's president, Viktor Orban, won his country's election in April of 2014, he called for a total, essentially a stop to immigration into his country, coupled with the different protocols essentially to boost the native Hungarian population and birth rates. This outrage, which ensued, the people were pissed, and the EU Minister for Foreign Affairs, this person in Norway, Vidar I'm not going to pronounce his name, called for the UN immediately to impose economic sanctions on Hungary. And this is his quote, I think. There's a whole other demographic that we are missing here. More than 1 million people are mixed race, faster growing ethnic groups and countries. With a couple generations, this will seem like really redundant debate because people are falling in love with each other and making babies. And where the future lies is with these people's hopes and bullshit. This is what a lead interviewer and feature writer on the Sunday Telegram speaking on the big questions. If you look at this quote more elaborate, first of all, the quote comes from a show called Big Questions, hosted by Nikki Campbell. The show was given a title, Are We Afraid to Talk About Race? Predictably, the lineup of speakers giving their opinion were carefully selected puppets and non-whites who are interested in not a future racial and cultural homogenous society of Britain, but their own racial and cultural interests. But no speakers allowed who spoke up specifically for white interests. This isn't surprising at all, as we know these panelists who desire the day when Britain becomes a minority white don't believe in diversity at all. They don't care whatsoever about the fact that whites are being racially displaced by political and ideological motivations through mass immigration. When whites become the minority, there will be no demands for more whites because of lack of diversity. These people want whites gone. Out of this disempowerment, they support policies and conditions of life being forced upon us that will lead to our displacement. Now, if you go back to the quote in context, it shows the quote comes towards the end of the program, almost 40 minutes of non-whites telling us that blacks cannot be racist and whites are to blame for everything. This is the usual sketch, you know, the one where whites are responsible for black poverty, lack of black achievement, black crime, black murder, black rape, etc. Blacks cannot be racist. This quote is quite revealing because while telling us some of the truth, it exposes the mentality of anti-whites and that the desire to see Britain and Europe and America and Canada, etc. become minority white. They don't hide the fact that they support genocidal levels of mass immigration and desire the day when whites will lose their power in their own nations. And
so this is the part of the show where I tell you that I'm not responsible for anything that I said, and that anything that you find reprehensible that I said, I'm Mexican and I can't be racist. So I'm off the hook. Nothing I said was racist. So go fuck yourself.
I'm actually Native American. Honestly, I always joke because I could be, because I traced one of my grandma's bloodlines back to 1604 in Canada, which is fucking crazy because they were some of the first people to step foot on this continent. But then it goes to America, what America is now, and then it stops. So for all I know, my ancient ancestors, maybe married with natives, because when I was a baby, I did look kind of Asian and they're from some of the Southeast Asian, Northern Asian countries. And that's why if you look at a place like Siberia and the native populations there, they look almost identical to Native Americans. And even there's people who are like, well, if you've been here this long, there might be a connection. So and I've never done those ancestry tests. I actually don't want to because I think that they'll just have my DNA. But for all I know, I could be Native and at least somewhere in my blood and stuff like that, because why does it stop? And it's interesting when I start looking at that stuff and you're like, holy shit. That's why I became more passionate about this. Because I'm like, when my ancestors came here and sacrificed their lives and did all the things that they did to create this nation. And like I said, the America went for more independence. We were more loyal to the crown, which probably wasn't a good thing. But at the end of the day, a lot of like Americans and Canadians, they come from the same stock of people that arrived over in this continent and then intermarried and stuff like that. And now where we are today, right? It's so true. If voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it. They say that it comes from, when I was a baby, I did look kind of Asian is my favorite quote of the year. I did. And some people still, because I have like kind of oval eyes that they're like, are you sure you're not like a little Asian or something like that? And luckily I didn't get the dick of an Asian, That could have been worse. But I'll play another clip because I have I'm getting through some of this stuff. I don't have too many more notes, but I found this really good site against cultural Marxism, and they have a lot of these good quotes put together and really try to frame it. But we'll do this one because they literally openly say that it's a good thing that they're getting rid of white people. They openly talk about it and say it. So here's more proof.
White Americans will soon be a minority, and that's great.
Whites will not be the majority. I mean, it's an exciting transformation of the country. It's an exciting evolution and progress of our country.
We are going to be a white minority very, very soon. I'm okay with that.
If things are so bad, as you say, with the white working class, don't you want to get new Americans in?
America is going to look very different in 100 years. You're not going to be able to tell you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic, you're Puerto Rican, whatever. It's going to be very complex, and I think ultimately that's going to be good.
white Americans feel that they're losing their country, they're losing ownership of the country, and they're right. In the end, they are not the future.
For the first time in American history, the number of white people went down.
White population is declining for the first time in history in America.
White people will not be the majority in the country anymore.
This will be the first generation ever in American history in which whites will be a minority.
Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
To abolish whiteness is to abolish white people.
White people are committed to being villains in the aggregate, right? We got to take these motherfuckers out.
Was it or was it not the duty of every good revolutionary to kill all newborn white babies?
We have to kill white people.
When do we start killing white people?
I don't want to say we need to go start killing all white folks, but it's like, but maybe.
When we say we want to kill whitey, we don't really mean we want to kill whitey, we do.
We have to exterminate white people off of the face of the planet to solve this problem.
Fuck white people!
An unrelenting stream of immigration. Non-stop. Non-stop. Folks like me who are Caucasian of European descent will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. That's not a bad thing.
It's crazy. They openly, like, they brag about it. They tell us that we should die. If I said that, I would be either demonized or maybe even Canada arrested. And I don't I don't want this to happen to anybody. If this was happening to Asians, I would speak out about it. If it's happening to black people, I'd speak out against it. You know what I mean? That it's just like, but these are also my people that have been told they should be that we should be demonized and all this. And they openly say that we should, like, they're gonna like off us, and they're openly calling for genocide of white, and it's okay. And they'll literally cheer for it. And there will be a lot of white people that will cheer for it because they've been so conditioned. And it's like, I would stick up for other people. And that's why I see there is quite a few Asians that are like, yeah, like, what the fuck? I don't want white people gone. That's crazy. And there is black people that are starting to get it. Like, there is a lot of, especially African Americans that have seen what's going on with maybe some more of the J-ish agenda, which is not all of them. Like I said, there's nothing it's all speculation and theory. Nothing is supposed to be taken as hateful on this podcast. But, like, imagine if there's a whole clip of just people calling for the deaths of Asians, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
I mean, buddy, yeah, all of this is being done on purpose. And again, they had to take out the strongest ones. There's no other reason why it would be the white people first, except that the white people were the strongest. And so they had to smash you out. It's not going to end there. Like, you can see it is happening in, like, Korea. It's happening in Japan. It's going to happen to China. It's going to happen in India. The world. It'll happen in India eventually. Yeah, they're going to get too big for their stinky britches, and they're going to have to do something to them. Sure. But it is interesting, dude. I don't know much more to say about it besides, if you get too radical in this, and I think that that's part of the psyop as well.
Yeah, I agree.
They literally want to have a race war. They want to have a civil war, and they want their order out of chaos. Like, you can look at their stupid movies that they do, like even like the Hunger Games, like where they're encouraging this type of. They want us to fight. They want us to fight because they don't want us to actually look at each other and be like, wait a minute, whose boot's on our neck? Because if you start looking up at the boot that's actually on your neck, it's that meme where all those kids are like in a circle. They have two crabs fighting, and everyone's like, you know what I mean? That's what it's like. The Jays, the Anglo-American Empire, the Vatican, that, like, all of these people, and the Freemasons, and all these fucking retards, and they're throwing money.
I know, and it is true. If we do nothing, nothing will happen too. And it's like, and I'm not saying, and I've never I don't think I don't condone violence or hatred towards other people, but I do advocate for my own people and the preservation of my heritage and my people, and that's a fact. And people take that context of white people stand up for themselves. All of a sudden, they're like the most evil, racist people, but everyone else is allowed to do it. And I have nothing against other people doing it, but I am going to stand up for my own people. And it is a dividing concept conquer tactic that they're using, because they need division, and their goal is division to separate everybody and to make like a race war so they can take power control, because now they are like, oh, we have an excuse. But this is interesting too. The media and entertainment made it fashionable for white women to be seen with a black male. This is purposely intended to poison the minds of young white girls. White men were portrayed as being inferior, undesirable, boring compared to the portrayal portrayal of black men. The rise of mixed race populations has been the result intended by social and racial engineering of society, much in the same way as Edward Bernays, a Jewish nephew of Sigmund Freud, the father of public relations, made it fashionable for women to smoke, and therefore by increase the profit from the sales of cigarettes. They made miscegenation fashionable through the same sort of public relations propaganda, and for the purpose of displacing the white majority to benefit those that were pushing it. Miscegenation propaganda is only being promoted in white nations, in white countries, to white people. It is being promoted to, it's not being promoted in Africa. It is not being promoted to Asians. Only whites are being poisoned with the genocidal message. Within a couple of generations, this will seem likely redundant debate, because people are falling in love and making babies, as that guy stated. What he's saying is also true, largely as a result of what is being said above. The most important quote here is what he says: the future lies where our hopes should be. This is advocating and supporting, encouraging white genocide. He knows by the end of this century, whites in Britain will be a minority, and he wants this to happen in the ways that they want you to think that's like a good thing. And that's like the whole process of like this cultural engineering and psychological dismantling of European pride and identity, and how for centuries now there's been textbooks and history books that were written, and the youth are being indoctrinated to believe that their ancestors were colonizers, racist, and oppressors, while they're being told it's only moral duty to atone by accepting endless immigration, multiculturalism, and self-erasure. The media plays its part in vilifying any resistance of hate or fascism, while glorifying diversity as the highest moral good. Political correctness, hate speech laws, and censorship ensures the dissidents silenced before this can gain traction. The cultural battlefield of the Kalergi plan not only replaces European physicality, but also erasure of this will to survive spiritually. And it definitely seems like we're in a spiritual war when it comes to like all of this stuff that's happening, right? And it's definitely clear they're going after us first, right?
Yeah, dude. Holy shit, the sun's coming out.
Yeah, I see that.
It's blasting me in the eyes. Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating, dude. And what I will say is I'm happy to see more people that are, I don't want to say like proud to be white, but sure. I don't want whites to be ashamed to be white anymore. I think it's great seeing solidarity between white people and people, I guess, just being happy and proud of like, where they came from and who their families are. And it's a beautiful thing, dude. Like, I hate watching whites apologize for being white.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
It's crazy, dude. I have my kids are white passing, whatever you want to call that.
Mm-hmm.
My beautiful wife has blonde hair and blue eyes, and so does my littlest has blonde hair and blue eyes. This beautiful little boy. I don't ever want anyone to make him apologize for just being born the way that he is, dude. Especially when you start having kids, it's crazy. Like you just had a kid with your lovely wife, and then all of a sudden that shit becomes very real when they're trying to say,
I don't want my kid to be demonized or like hearing what they're being taught in schools. And part of it is like it involves like the transgender agenda and even homosexuality and stuff like that they push to diverge and like to essentially destroy the bloodlines too. Because obviously if you have more people that are gay or cutting off their weens or all sorts of things, right, then it's like less,
it's more depopulation.
Yeah. Let me play this clip. I have two more. This is about 2 minutes, and I have a really short little clip. But obviously, the guise of it's being done for a good thing is crazy. But I can't remember what this one is. Let's play this.
Supremacist theory that Jews are driving for quote open borders to commit white genocide, as they call it, to replace America as it looks today with Muslims and Mexicans and other people.
Jews are the ones who want to welcome refugees because it's a conspiracy. And the truth is that, yes, there are Jews in Pittsburgh who are working to resettle refugees. That is true.
White Americans who feel that they're losing their country, they're losing ownership of the country. And they're right. I mean, we are becoming more diverse, more multicultural, and they are, in the end, they're they are not the future. In the end, the power they still have will go away.
That we're witnessing the end of white America as we know it. The question is, how long and how expensive will the funeral be?
Brown people and black people and Muslims and immigrants are coming to replace our white civilization, and the Jew's job is basically to pass as a white person, but in fact do the bidding of these people that we
there are many people who are biologically and even halakhically Jewish, that is to say they are Jewish. They brainwashed people to subscribe to the notion that most desirable utopian reality that could be hoped for in human affairs would be a complete admixture of the nations, of the ethnic groups, and of the cultures.
It's a kind of utopia, just the fact that the whole world will mix up with each other, that in, I don't know, 70, 80 years, there will be no white people anymore and only cappuccino-colored.
Look, that's the only way. This is the only solution.
But when the diversity becomes so extreme that you have almost like balkanized groups, that there are no actual traditional communities, all the traditional communities are outnumbered completely by newcomers, and the newcomers keep on and on rolling in, it has a very alienating effect.
Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017.
We heard that, and it's like it is crazy how openly and to be clear, like this is not against anyone that's Jewish and stuff. I've had Jewish friends throughout my life or whatever, but it's just like there is people that are in that community that even admit and say like this is bad. There's that book that I read. There's a lot of good points in it. It's called The Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World, and it's written by a Jewish guy, and he calls it all this stuff about the Zionists and the massive a lot of things, and he is like I don't believe in the faith, but I was born in this, right? And a lot of them will admit and either admit themselves, or they'll say, yeah, this is not good, and they'll even say that they're aware of what's going on, right? And it's not just it's the elites. There's more than just like white Jewish elites or whatever. It's a bunch of different factions. Like there's ones in the Arabic world too, that are doing the same thing, but it is there's all these like psychological warfare and false flag events, and to push more and more division, as much like we're going to see this now with the hostility with Muslims, and even though none of their countries want to bring in any of their own people, they do not bring in refugees. Neither does China and half these other countries. But we're supposed to take in everybody into our backyard, people that have been brainwashed to be hostile towards us. And now we have hostility within our nations. Women are afraid to go outside. They're afraid to go to a club now and just hang out and find a guy, whatever it might be. Like, especially in inner cities, it's just becoming violent and crazy, right?
It is interesting, dude. And again, I always kind of zoom out and kind of look at things from an outsider's perspective. And what I'm seeing, which I find probably more dangerous and more scary, is that America has been the economic titan. We have been the big boy on the schoolyard, but they've used us as the army. They've used us as a scapegoat for many things, but I think our time in the sun is ending, and you can see it. And just the amount of trillions of dollars that we are in debt right now, and it's due to this centralized banking that when they took over, and they've exploited the system so much, dude. And at this point, you can't do it anymore. Like the interest is going to be so high, it's going to be over $1 trillion just to pay the annual interest every year just on the debt itself.
For invisible money.
For invisible money. So,
and they openly state, at least in the people, and in true, they truly believe in this occult magic practices where like they believe that they need to bring back Babylon or whatever. There's so many different theories, but they claim that they need to destroy the West. They need to destroy Edom and Rome, whatever, right? This modern Rome and stuff like that. But they clearly say in a lot of their messianic texts that they have to destroy Edom.
But it's funny, dude, because they created Rome so that they could destroy it. It's this weird. Because it's fascinating. I don't know exactly how to put it exactly, but I do see them. They're kind of like the internationalists, whatever you want to call this, the globalists, the internationalists, the banker So, like, we don't have to call it Jays because they're not all just Jays.
No,
but they
no,
are
they're not.
international, like, parasites that just feed off of countries, milk all of their resources, and then they dip.
Yeah,
right?
100%. And it is not like the average white person's fault that these oligarchs do this. And that's what people need to understand. That's true. That's why I always call it
identifying with those cunts. Like,
Yeah.
there's a difference between a normal Jay and those people, and it's in their interest to use the Jays as a scapegoat. That's to me why I say it's not. That's why I don't even like to say it's the Jays, because it's not. It's a group of like nepotistic sociopaths that have been inbred, and they just keep using their influence and money to keep it within their family and their bloodlines. They don't care if they're Jays or not.
And this is happening in Asian countries and Arabic nations too, of the same sort of lineage of these people that have interbred and married throughout the same system to keep total control and stuff. And you'll see this all throughout the world that they're doing this, and it's not just specific people. And I always call this out too, that it is like politicians are parasites, that they're consuming our time, money, and energy. And Nate is correct that they're like consuming, they come into a place, they set up shop, they consume all the resources, and then they dip out and leave these people impoverished and in chaos. And right. So to end this on, I have just a short clip, and this is just one of my new songs that I just released. I put it out there because I'm working on a new album called The White Man's Burden, and it's calling out a lot of the stuff that's going on. And I released this as a teaser because it's hard to have time to record a whole album while doing Class Horrorcast, my horror podcast with my buddy from Ireland, and doing Strange Brew, and then we got a bunch of different guests coming on. So this is just a little teaser.
By God, our home remains. This is our home, not yours. Hordes of foreigners walk upon our shores. The new world order is here. We're at war. I can give you the crash course so you live through the battle. We attack at dawn. If you don't do it for yourself and your people, what are you doing it for? This is a movement to restore our birthright. You wonder why the youth is turning further to the right when they're told if you're white, you're not worthy of life. How dare you have the nerve to have pride?
So that's my new song. We'll have our home again, and you can check the Raptillion on all music platforms. And someone did make a good point.
Is that not a felony in Canada?
Yeah, I know. Just speak out for being white and stuff like that. It's so crazy. Like in all my and even if you listen to some, I did a song called "Blame White People," and it was essentially just exposing, be like, at the end of all the oligarchs, it doesn't matter what skin color you are. They're coming after all of us in the end, right? And they can't it's music. It is. If you were saying that that's, then people talking about killing each other in music shouldn't be right. So they're trying to push these subversive agendas and stuff. And it's just about having care for my own people. My love for my own people is not hatred for others. That's absurd that they try to convince us of that. And it is true that now in South Africa and places like that, and it's happening in Canada, they're not allowing white people to get jobs because there's diversity quotas and people can't find jobs. So they bring in immigrants to replace the population. They can pay them less, and a lot of times they're getting benefits and tax, all this thing that are happening, and it's not good. So to end on this, the Kalergi plan is maybe not a theory of bullets and battlefields. It is a war of paperwork, policies, and propaganda fought in parliaments, classrooms, and newsrooms. It is the architects wear suits instead of uniforms, and the soldiers are bureaucrats and NGOs rather than the armies. Yet its consequences are just as permanent: the erasure of a people and the birth of a new artificial Europe. To believers, this is the greatest conspiracy of our age, planned, written a century ago by half-forgotten aristocrats, neutered by the elites, and now carried out step by step under the banner of progress. And like I said, I don't condone violence or hatred or anything like that. For people that are watching or listening, I care for all people. I know we have fans from all walks of life all across the world, and this is just exposing what's going on. And at the end of the day, we have the power, we have the numbers. There's power in numbers, and if at some point people just decide to stop paying these people, that's where it ends. And I'm not saying that to start a revolution or any crazy thing like that people will try to take out of this. It is that we do have the power if we choose to collectivize. Whether you be black, white, Asian, we're all under the boot of the same control system, and it will only get worse. And the restrictions with this AI and stuff like that will only tighten further if people don't just say, hey, enough is enough. And we need to realize, hey, that, you may look different than me, but at the end of the day, we're being manipulated by the same people who want us to fight. And that's a fact. It's true, right?
100%, dude. And the most powerful thing you can do is to make babies and raise them correctly.
Yes, 100%. Raise a new generation of people. This is good. I figured like an hour and a half was kind of perfect for this. And I just wanted to do this again. And it'll probably I have other ideas for episodes, but I wanted to cover this. Me and Aaron covered it in other episodes and just venting about some of the frustrations we have with what's happening to our countries in Ireland and Canada, across the world, in Europe and in America and Australia. And it's just like saying, we're just venting and exposing, hey, like this stuff is happening. You can deny it, but there's a ton of proof that it is. And this is not about hatred. It's about, hey, like look what's happening. If there's a black guy, I can't remember his name, but he's really good at talking about this stuff. And he said, if we import everybody, into these white nations or whatever, that there's nowhere to go in the end of the day. If we want to seek a better life, if everything turns into the same melting pot of hell and chaos and division, there'll be nowhere for people to go to seek refuge or to you know what I mean? To find a better life. Everything will just be the same. And that's part of the plan too. Like if people like cultural Marxism and the communist New World Order agenda, because I think that it's a communist order, is to bring everybody to the same poverty level. You need it's a more of a caste system. They need all the rich oligarchs on top, no matter what, they don't care. A billionaire is a billionaire. A black billionaire is going to look at a white billionaire and try to make a deal. And then at the bottom, it will be us who are all equally poor. They need to drag the first world down to a third world, and then everyone will be equally poor. It's not about uplifting other people, even though it seems like that right now. It's about making everyone equally as poor so they can take control. I truly believe that's what's happening, right?
I do, man. And I would just close on this. The folks that are on the right wing, the conservatives that are listening to this, the ones that defend Donald Trump, just please critically look at some of the decisions that he's making. Destabilizing Venezuela is not going to benefit us in any form. You can maybe say that we'll have cheaper gas prices but I don't think so. I think that the corporations are going to come in there. Shell, I think, has already been up in there, and they're going to come in, and Exxon, they're going to come and suck out the natural resources of Venezuela. It's going to hurt the Venezuelans, and it's going to hurt the American people because, look, we're already in enough debt. We don't need to be taking on more problems. And regime change is never a good thing, dude.
It's absolutely crazy because everything is like orchestrated. And I was gonna say earlier, like my whole point is like, I don't want, like I've seen what's happening to France. I've seen what's happening to places in the UK. I want France to be for the French people. I don't want to go to France and it to look like Zimbabwe or to what used to be Rhodesia, right? Like I don't want it to look like, I don't want us to be global South Africa. I don't want what's happening there. Aaron had an uncle that worked there, and he had to get out because they were literally slaughtering farmers, pouring hot oil and water down the throats of their children. Like the craziest things you can imagine, because these people have been brainwashed to see white people as the enemy. I don't want to go to the UK or Britain and look like I'm living in little Somalia or like little Afghanistan. They have those places. Fix their countries. They have the more than enough wealth, especially in the Arabic nations, to be able to fix some of these places that are impoverished and stuff. But they don't want that. They need chaos and division to observe, like more money for the elites and stuff. So, I don't like, people have a right to defend their culture and preserve their heritage, and there should be nothing wrong with that. And it's crazy that they try to convince people that there is. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, man. And I just wanted to break this down in a very a way that was digestible for everybody to realize, hey, yeah, there is a concern, and I don't care where you come from. If you see what's going on, I appreciate that you're awake enough to see what's happening, right?
Straight up, dude. Go make babies.
Yeah.
That's that. Young men, work hard, get married, have kids. Lots of them.
And teach them right. Tell them where they can find you, and then I'll shout our stuff, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah, man. Follow us at Reality Czars, and also support my co-host at paranoidamerican.com. Go buy some awesome comic books, some sweet swag, all that fun stuff. And go sign up at doesbigfootexist.com. We are going to be working. We've been working on this for a couple of years. This awesome comic that is going to describe every single type of Bigfoot you can even imagine. Every single theory.
I'm sure Squatch in the chat will like that.
So please go and support us there. You don't even have to give us any money. Just sign up, because the more people we have that like sign up for the campaign or whatever, it helps with the algorithm, and it helps like blow up when we do go to publish it. So please go there, support us. That'd be awesome.
support this stuff, you know, and if for the people that are on your end or whatever, obviously go to Strange Brew Podcast, support us there. At some point, I'd like to have Thomas on the show. We've talked about it, and it's just like with doing both shows, and then like we have a lot of times, like you guys have different guests. Sometimes there's people that email me, and then I'm like, sure. Right. I had a Jewish lady on recently that talked about like she thinks she can talk to like fairies and stuff like that. Right. So I will talk to anyone if they have strange stories, and we actually get a far amount of like get a decent amount of emails out of nowhere of people like, oh, are you interested in this guest? So I'll like talk to anybody. But the heart of the show was talking about conspiracies and you know, having some fun and being an outlet for people. So you can support us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/strangerpodcast. We've listened to audio. You can follow us on Rumble and YouTube and Twitch to catch these live streams, because like this episode might not be out for 2 or 3 weeks by the time we record it. We usually go live first for events and for episodes, and then it comes out weeks later because we have a catalog backed up. But we appreciate everybody that listens and supports the show. It means a lot. And yeah, stay strange, everybody. Thank you for supporting. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff.